And wait a minute. Go. Okay. So today being Lamed Daled BaOmer, the day after Lag BaOmer, here in Eretz Yisrael. And also, according to some, they're observing Lag BaOmer today. I noticed last night when I came back from Meron that there were plenty of bonfires out there, and obviously people were heeding the call of certain Rabbanim to avoid potential Chilul Shabbos and to postpone things. And I guess if you think about it, I know people are growing up as late as Tuesday to Meron because we have a concept that, the Yortzeit continues, Ki'ilu, so to speak, the power of going to the Kaver on the Yortzeit continues for several days. That being connected to what we said last week, which was that Shabbos really is in the middle of the week. Not how Western world sees it, and not even how we mark it mostly in our calendars. Our calendars should really be built differently. We should have, we're influenced by the non-Jewish world, but the truth is Shabbos should be in the center because the influence of Shabbos goes 3 days. And this is, by the way, something from this past week's Parsha about the menorah, Parsha Zemor, because the middle branch of the menorah is the key of the 7 branches, right? And that, the middle of the 7th branch, represents the day of ultimate Kedusha. All of the Neros were positioned towards the middle. And if you think about it, Aaron faced the menorah. He lights it from the right-hand side, correct? So that is, quote-unquote, the beginning of the week, which is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yom Revi'i, Yom Chamishi, Yom Shishi, Shabbos, and then we taper down so that it becomes like a bell curve. We're moving up and moving back down. So there is certainly justification in looking at our Mabat of Zman, our 7 component of Zman, with Shabbos in the center. Okay, so I wanted to just share some thoughts relevant to Lag BaOmer as relevant to our discussion. We all know that we're studying as an overarching concept the development of the Geula as stages through the millennium, and we're talking about now the 5th millennium, which was from 240 to 1240, in which, according to the Zohar, and I recently saw a beautiful sefer from Rav Chaim Vital, he also corroborates this, the Gaon corroborates this, that secretly the Rabbanim knew that those 1,000 years would not be years of redemption, but rather years of Gullus. Of course, there could always be an override, Hashem, as a Kol Yachol, and maybe we would have had this fantastic schus, would have had some sort of fantastic schus to override, but Al Pi normal, Seder HaDvarim, as much as normal is normal. Thank you. The Torah of the Nistar, the hidden world of Torah, the world of the Rashbi, of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who's the centerpiece of Lag BaOmer, that had 1,000-year underground, went underground for 1,000 years, much like Rashbi himself went underground for a period of time. Kabbalah went underground. And that was the Elef HaChamishi. So what I want to just show you and share with you is some thoughts about Rashbi and why his revelation of the Zohar was so critical at that critical time, and a little bit what it's all about. So in order to understand Rashbi from the eyes of those who appreciate his contribution, which is the Pnimius HaTorah, the inner parts of the Torah, we know that the Geula cannot come unless those parts of the Torah become shared with the world. That was the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, that he went and he spoke to Mashiach. He went Ki'ilu to Mashiach in Shemaim, and he asked him, when is Mashiach going to come? And he says, when your Mayanos go chutza, when your well springs of teaching go out. And of course, our focus has been on certain personalities who were the key breakthrough personalities who started a new era of revelation of the Torah, of the Or HaPnimi of the Torah. Of course, Moshe Rabbeinu had everything. Moshe Rabbeinu had all aspects of Torah, but was able to give over only parts of them to the Jewish people in his day. Now, there was one individual who was the immediate next line of receiving the Torah as we prepare for Shavuos after Moshe Rabbeinu. Who was the one? And sometimes, actually, that person heard directly from Hashem. Divrei Torah, Parshios in the Torah, whom am I referring to? Who also sometimes Hashem taught him directly. No, in the Torah itself. Vayidaber Hashem el Aaron HaKohen. So Aaron HaKohen represents more than Yehoshua, because it's in the Torah itself, right? Yeshua did not reach the level of Aaron HaKohen, because, and even not the level of the other Kohanim, the remaining sons of Aaron, because Chazal tell us that the way the Torah was taught, Moshe Rabbeinu would receive this inspiration from Hashem. He would comprehend the Torah, and then he would give it over to the Jewish people. How did he give it over? The first person he talked to about his chavrusa. Can you imagine being chavrusa of Moshe Rabbeinu? That's pretty cool. Moshe Rabbeinu's chavrusa, as it were, was Aaron HaKohen. He was the first one to be taught the Parsha and Torah. Then Moshe sat Aaron next to him, called in the remaining sons of Aaron, right? Elazar and Itamar. Elazar, who would go on to be what? What did Elazar go on to become? Elazar ben Aaron Kohen became the Kohen Gadol during Aaron's lifetime, and then he is the Kohen Gadol for the period of Yeshua's rule, right? So Elazar and Yeshua become partners. So, and then after the sons of Aaron came, then the other, Zakanim started to come in, and then it was shared, in the system of Sarei Alafim, Sarei Chamishim, right? It went down Meos Chamishim until you went down to the Sarei Asaros, and then everybody had a complete. By that time, the Torah had been repeated many, many times. Hashem told it to Aaron, and then he told it to Elazar and Itamar together with Aaron, and then they called in the Zakanim, and they told it in the company of Aaron and Elazar and the Zakanim. The Torah gets constantly reviewed until it gets down to the very last individual of Klal Yisrael.
Excuse me, did Moshe Rabbeinu teach everybody when he said it, he gave it over, or they had to give it over?
There were times when Moshe Rabbeinu gave it over directly. That's when we have Hakel. When there were certain parshas in the Torah that were said to the entire Jewish people together, and certain mitzvos that were given over together, right? And Sefer Devarim as a whole was pretty much done publicly, because Moshe convened Am Yisrael to listen to him. So if you want to think about the mitzvos in Sefer Devarim, many of them are really only shared in that fashion. And many others too. Okay, so Aaron is therefore the step down from Moshe, one level down from Moshe Rabbeinu. He represents the top level that anybody could possibly achieve other than Moshe. So Moshe reached which level of Chachma?
49.
The 49th level of Chachma. And 50 is already not from this world. It's already from the world beyond. The Malachim can have access to the 50th, perhaps, but not humankind. Now, there's only 48 levels that a person could reach in theory, as if they could reach the 48 levels. And that is why, I don't know if you know, the famous Torah code that was revealed by Rav Yosef Weissmandel, great Rav. The name rings a bell to everyone? Yes? He was a Rav in Europe, it was Moravia or Czechoslovakia, that area, and he was a brilliant Talmud Chacham, had a computer-like mind, really computer-like mind. He could see the whole Torah in front of him like on a screen. And he innovated the idea of the Torah codes, of counting letters and revealing, again, Pnimiyas HaTorah. He in our generation, by the way, probably made the biggest contribution to revealing new elements of Torah, because without him, the model of the Torah codes would not have even been known, and it only started after World War II. He, by the way, had the courage, being a real tzaddik, a tzaddik emes, to confront Eichmann himself. Only the greatest of Rabbanim and people who have that level, that they have all levels of the Torah in front of them, can really have the clarity to confront evil. Really have the clarity. He negotiated with Eichmann.
What did he do?
He said, I'll buy Jews. Sell me Jews. How much money you want? And then, of course, there was Kastner, who also organized the transports. There were certain other things. There were the kinder transports. But the reality is, and people were talking about this just recently, should be known, there was one major gathering of the Orthodox rabbis to protest the extermination of European Jews. And they came to Roosevelt. It was the march of the rabbis. One of the last rabbis who participated in that march, who's still alive, recently passed away, was Rabbi Binyamin Kamenetsky from the South Shore. The march took place in 1943. Rav Lazer Silver, who was the Rav of Cincinnati, Ohio, but also was considered the chief rabbi of America, so to speak. And they say about him that, he wore a top hat, and he was this remarkable genius in Torah, but also a great leader. And he built, the out-of-town rabbinate in America. He was one of the great stars in that early era. And he used to say when he got pulled over by a policeman, so the driver would say, you can't give us a ticket. This is the chief rabbi of America. And then Rav Lazer would pop out his head and say, and Canada. And I guess that helped getting off the ticket. But they marched on Washington in 1943. Roosevelt refused to receive them. They sent them a very low-level thing. However, there's a historical argument that it did have impact. The deeper pshat is that the work of Rav Michal Weissmandl triggered support coming from America from Henry Morgenthau, who was the Jew in the Treasury. He was, the Yosef HaTzadik, the Abarbanel. He was running the Treasury of Roosevelt. And he was the one that people got a hold of him and convinced him to go in and intervene, and then Roosevelt set up a commission, which saved about 100,000, maybe more. And this Rav Weissmandl saved about 100,000 people. And until his last days, it says he was broken. He says, I could have saved so many more, I could have saved somebody more. But he was true tzaddik. He revealed to us a Torah code. I'm not going to go into it. It's called the Menorah Code. And the Menorah Code is when you count 49 letters from the first Yud in Bereshis. Excuse me. Look, I want to tell you over the Menorah Code properly. So I know let me bookmark it for now. But just this point of it I want to tell you. There are 49 interval level skips that spell out Hashem's name. In Bereshit and in Shmos, in Vayikra it's Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then in Bamidbar, 49 letter skips spelling out Hashem's name, and then you have in Devarim only 48 letter skips. And this is because, as he revealed to us, the revelation of Hashem's name in the book of Devarim was already transitioning between Moshe and Aaron. You understand? Moshe was already giving over. It was the day of his death. He was already transferring over. So Aaron represents the first element of what we would call Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah. Because he received the written Torah, the words from Moshe, and then Moshe gave him the explanations. He told him, what does Shabbos mean? You have to keep Shabbos, but what does that mean? There are 39 malachos. There's these type of rules. What do you do? There's shchita, but what are the rules of shchita? What type of knife do you have? How much do you have to cut? We don't know, right? We don't understand exactly how to perform these mitzvahs. There's written in the Torah, but we're not getting information and details. The information and the details forms the base of information that we call Torah Sheba'al Peh in what we call the Mishnah. The Mishnah, which literally means a review. It's the oral Torah which reviews the Torah, right? And gives us the information that we need to keep it. So, for example, you have Maseches Shabbos, 24 chapters of Mishnayos, because Shabbos is complicated. Plus, there's a whole layer of rabbinic halacha that was added on. For example, what were some of the things added on Shabbos that were purely rabbinic? The idea of muktzah. Well, no, that's the Raisa. That's the Raisa, absolutely. So, Aaron then can be associated with the Mishnah. Okay. Said Reb Chaim Vital, the Mishnah is the outer shell of the Zohar. To such an extent that one could say it's this is what Reb Chaim Vital says, which is shocking if you didn't hear it from Reb Chaim Vital. The Mishnah, which is the oral Torah, is the maidservant of the Zohar, which is the inner queen of the Torah. And that anybody who will stop at Mishnah, which in our terms means, of course, Mishnah evolved, because we needed to explain it and we needed to derive halacha from it, it evolved into Gemara, right? And then the Gemara had the commentaries of the great Gaonim and the Rishonim, and then it became codified into halacha, ironically, by the great Mekubalim era of Tzfat, which is interesting. When Kabbalah started to emerge in a dramatic form with the arrival of the Ari HaKadosh in Tzfat in the middle of this 16th century, 1560, 1570, that was when the first attempt to take the entire corpus of oral Torah, right? I'm talking about not aside from the Rambam, and there are others who wrote codifications, but to make it simplified, to have a simplified presentation of halacha, otherwise known as Shulchan Aruch. So it was, that whole process began with Aaron HaKohen. And let's understand, where was the Sanhedrin located in the Beis HaMikdash? In the Beis HaMikdash, right next to the area where the karbanos are brought. Why? Because the Kohanim are supposed to be the Dayanim. So actually, if you want to think about it, Aaron HaKohen was supposed to be the Rosh of the Sanhedrin, because in essence, he was, because he was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, because he was the first one that got taught oral Torah. So he better be the expert, right? He's the one, number one. So therefore, halacha and kahuna go together. You cannot have the Sanhedrin any place but on the campus of the Beis HaMikdash, because, and this is a Mishnah in Sanhedrin, this is very important, listen carefully, it says, Hakol ksherin ladun dine mamanos. Any Jew is qualified to serve as a judge in a monetary case, right? Ve'ein hakol ksherim ladun dine nefashos. But not everybody can sit on a case where life and death is hanging in the balance. And this includes many, many cases, because makot, giving person 39 lashes, is potentially killing him. The Mishnah Sanhedrin says, you don't know, they estimate that he can handle it, but who knows? Maybe he can't handle it and he'll pass away. And that's just too bad, because it's a corporal punishment. And if the Shaliach Bezdin does his job and administers the makos that they assign to him, some can't receive the whole 39, some receive 18, some receive others. They make an umdina, the Mishnah and Sanhedrin tells us, they make a plan for this guy, how many he can handle medically, but if they misjudged it, there's no harm done. The Shaliach did his job. If he dies, he dies. So therefore, makos has the death penalty potential to it. So many cases. Who is kosher to do that? Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim hamasiyim lekahuna. Listen carefully. Kohanim and Leviim, who come from the same tribe, right? And Jews who are kosher to marry a Kohen. Who's not kosher to marry a Kohen? For example, who's not kosher to marry a Kohen? A grusha cannot marry a Kohen, right? And an almana cannot marry a Kohen Gadol. So, okay. So let's review what we started here. Aaron HaKohen, who is the overarching figure of that 1,000-year period in which Mashiach could not be revealed because we were holding back the hidden Torah and only could focus on what? The revealed Torah, which is started with Mishnah and continues with the development of Gemara and Rishonim up until the period of 1240. Who did you already have up until that point? Who were the great Rishonim that we already had giving us their contributions to that point? The Rambam, the Rashi, okay? The Gaonim. We had the key early Rishonim. The only ones we didn't have, we had the Bali Tosfos, we had Rabbeinu Tam, all finished by the year 1240, all done. The last generation of the Rishonim was the Ramban. And that's over the line of 1240, in which Kabbalah can be revealed again. And that's what I think we mentioned, that the Ramban in his Perush al HaTorah was the first individual who actually incorporates a section for Kabbalah in his commentaries. It's called Al Pi Emes, Chachma. I mentioned to you, ArtScroll doesn't translate those portions. You buy an ArtScroll Ramban, beautiful ArtScroll Ramban in blue, and it has nice chapters and everything good. You get up to the point that it says Al Pi HaEmes, according to the Chachma of the Kabbalah, they say, this is beyond the scope of our commentary, and we won't do it. And they made a decision. Now, personally, somebody says, boy, you could write a great book. Just take the portions that ArtScroll doesn't write about and bring them out. Okay, easier said than done. But the Ramban got it out in 1270, 1267, 1270. So why can't in the 21st century, was ist schlecht? Why can't we? Not so simple. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I've got two questions. I'm a little bit confused. You said Moshe Rabbeinu was the 49th level he received. Right. But Aaron only got
48.
Okay, fine. Now, the 48 that Aaron got, was that, it didn't have anything mystical, it wasn't...
It had everything mystical.
It had everything, so they still knew, all the people,
yes.
All up until Shomim Bayit
Correct.
did know.
It was
so
known.
So it was known, just not...
Wasn't shared.
It wasn't shared publicly.
That's right.
Okay, fine. Now, my question is, though, this thing that...
some of it was able to be shared, but it was shared because you had to keep the tradition alive. You have to give over Torah, but you had to be a person who prepared themselves, who was on a tremendous level, knew all of the revealed Torah, and also developed their midos and their character. And even then, it was done in a way which was very surreptitious. It was almost like, imagine spies sharing information. How do spies share information? Do they sit down in a cafe and saying, okay, here's the points that we're going to attack? You don't do that. You don't do that. There's some way, they have a secret rendezvous and the guy gives them a cryptic message and then they have to figure out what's going on. That's how Kabbalah was shared. Of course, who was the big enemy that we were hiding from? The Satan, who wants no part of Kabbalah coming out in the open, because that's his death sentence. Because that means Mashiach is coming. The one thing that the Satan cannot afford to happen, and Baruch Hashem, it's happening despite everything, is that the Pnimius HaTorah be revealed, because that's another, dagger in the wound towards the Satan's demise, which we are very close to. But he's still got a lot left in the tank, unfortunately, because his fuel comes from the sins of Am Yisrael. Isn't that terrible? The way the Satan operates, and if you want to hear this more in depth, go online to Rabbi Kessin's Shiurim, Mendel Kessin. He describes this in great detail, but I'll give it to you in a thumbnail. He said, what happened was, after Adam sinned, was that Adam needed a rectification, the world needed. So what they did was, the Satan was attached. In other words, we had a Yetzer Hara that was attached to us internally, not externally, internally. And how does it work? If we do mitzvahs, our neshama illuminates itself and goes higher and higher. If we do averos, who gets a paycheck? The Satan. And he gets stronger and stronger until the Satan can actually control people and use them as vehicles of evil. Right? That's how it works. If a person completely surrenders to their Yetzer Hara, That means the Satan is having power over them, even though tzaddikim, great people, can counteract, because a Jewish soul is always a great Jewish soul. But we find that great Jewish souls can also do great Jewish damage. Jews have never really had to worry about non-Jews. Not really. They're not that effective. Jews are very effective. The one that debated the Ramban and caused his expulsion from Spain, a Jew. The one that caused the Talmud to be burned, Jews. I'm not going to wax political, I'm put this off the record, but there are very billionaire Jews today, I'm not mentioning any names, who are using their profound influence to really be great enemies of Israel and the Jewish people. I don't have to mention any names. I can mention one in the United States and one in Europe. And unfortunately, I also discovered, to my discernation, is that a word? That the president's son-in-law is doing business with one of these billionaires, which means that there's influence. Because, as they say, ervos hot demeya hot dedeya. You need a partner to give you like a couple $100 million. You know, you're going to have some conditions that there's usually strings attached. That's how influence is bought. So it's very disturbing, but we have nothing to worry about from the non-Jews. They'll be happy. At this point, they're very happy. It's more we have to be concerned about our own, because of the great power of a Jewish soul, which is inestimable. They have a little bomb. Okay, so a little bomb does a lot of damage. Jews are atomic. When you have an atomic bomb, it destroys everything. That's the pshat. You know, you can't. Jews are atomic souls. There, I coined a phrase. We are atomic souls. We only big stuff. Name some Jews who've had atomic impact on the world, even in our brief lifetimes. Who? Einstein did. That's previous already generation. In our generation, Zuckerberg hasn't had influence. That's Facebook, right? There are any number of people, even this, there are many, 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 many very, very impactful, forward-thinking scientists, innovators, entrepreneurs who have constantly changing the world. And Israel itself. We have to appreciate Israel. If you follow what's going on, not a week goes by without another major technological, scientific, or medical company being gobbled up for millions of dollars. Why? Because that is our true nature. That is the nature of a Jewish soul. We're just doing our thing. The reason why we're doing our thing is because we're back in Eretz Yisrael. But individual Jews could do it wherever they were. But it just takes on a lot more power when we're aggregated. Okay? Just like a yeshiva brings out so much more Torah and greatness. And people achieve great things as Talmidei Chachamim because they're together. An individual can do it too, but it's not as much. Okay. So what I wanted, let's go back. So now that we know that the hidden Torah was really under wraps, until the era of the Churban Bayis Sheni. Okay? Otherwise known as the period of the Tanoim, and the end period of that, even after the Churban, Rabbi Akiva and his students. Our 24,000 students, and I apologize, I still didn't take a shave yet, right? Because of the 24,000 students, they had it all. They had the entire Tosha Bal Peh, but only one of them received the specialty aspect of the hidden Torah. And which student was that? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So of the students of Rabbi Akiva, there were many, many incredible students. The final group of students that actually survived, Rav Shimon, the Tana Rav Shimon. You look at Mishnayos, Rav Shimon's name appears all over the place. By the way, it's very interesting, but it's rare that the halacha follows Rav Shimon. It's very rare. Rav Meir is definitely much more center to how the halacha evolves. Even Rabbi Elazar. But of the Tanoim, Rav Shimon got the hidden Torah. Okay? So he may not be the greatest halachic expert. Maybe Rav Meir superseded him because he took that element, but he took that element. Now, let's go into the song. So you know the song Bar Yochai? You want to know what it really means? It's like this crazy, hidden song. Okay, so let me share it. And you're going to see it all has to do with Aaron HaKohen. Because what day of the Sfira is Lag BaOmer? Hod Shebahod. Who represents Hod? Aaron, there you go. So Aaron is Hod Shebahod, which means we get Aaron on steroids. Aaron to the nth power. What is Aaron all about? What is the Kohen's real job? Well, he's the repository of the oral Torah. But what's the deepest and most powerful part of the oral Torah? The Pnimius HaTorah, the Zohar and the Kabbalah. And who had that aspect revealed? Shimon Bar Yochai, by teaching the Zohar publicly. If you look in any siddur, they have Psichas Eliyahu, the prayer, the opening part of the davening. You read this statement by none other than Eliyahu Hanavi, who describes how Rabbi Shimon was the only person given permission to get up and teach these secrets to the world. Eliyahu Hanavi identifies him. Who else does Eliyahu Hanavi identify? He's going to identify Mashiach, because that's part of Mashiach's job. That's part of Mashiach's job is to reveal and teach deeper and deeper aspects of Torah until the entire Torah is complete. Now, the relationship again between this Pnimius HaTorah and the revealed Torah, which is the Halacha, Mishnah and Halacha, as we said, according to the Mekubalim, is that of a servant to the queen. A servant to the queen. This is the queen, because this is the intimate conversation between Hashem and Klal Yisrael, like Shir HaShirim, right? Shir HaShirim, what does Rabbi Akiva say about it? We started on Pesach. When we're ready to start Sfira at that time, right? Shir HaShirim is Kodesh Kadashim. It looks very much like, on the external level, it looks like a love song between human beings, a love song. Not true, because Rabbi Akiva could pierce through it and see the inner workings of Torah inside of it, because he was the Rebbe of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. He was the one who could tell us, no, Shir HaShirim remains part of the canon, remains part of Tanakh, because this is necessary, it's Kodesh Kadashim. Okay, so let's get to our song. You can't sing. I know you can't sing. I can sing. You can't sing. Okay. Was it Bar Yochai, right? Nimshachta Ashrecha Shemen Sason Michavarecha. First line. He is Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha. Who else is Mashuach b'Shem? Who else was anointed with oil? The first person to be anointed with oil was Aaron HaKohen. So the first comparison is that he's a Mashiach. In fact, the terminology used, could you please help me find that song in this booklet? It's somewhere in that booklet. It's on one of those pages. Or it's certainly in the back over here. I brought it along. Shirim v'Piyutim.